welcome to the third installment in the religious trauma series that we're doing for quarter two. So today we're turning our attention to life inside high control religious environments. Throughout the quarter, we've chatted about how belief systems shape identity, authority, what healthy Christianity actually looks like. And in this conversation, we're stepping into very much lived reality and what it's like to grow up within a system where things like obedience, hierarchy, and moral control structure one's everyday life. I'm joined by Ashley Reynolds, who is a Reiki master and a tarot reader. And she's coming to share her personal story of how she was raised inside a high control religious environment. She's bringing both lived experience, some really beautiful reflections to the conversation, where we're looking to understand how these systems operate, how they shape things like identity, autonomy, and what it takes to rebuild oneself after leaving environments like that. Ashley, a huge, huge welcome and thank you for coming to join me for this conversation.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, so we're going to jump straight in and let's chat about structure and authority inside a high control system. Um, what characterized the environment. Let's chat a bit about the leadership dynamics, obedience expectations, information control, and a bit about the community structure. What did that all look like for you?
Okay, so I'll start with the obedience. It's kind of funny that when I saw that in there, I just my memory was rejogged to the first time obedience rule. Like if you did not obey immediately, whatever it was, no questions asked, you were getting spanked.
Mm.
So that wasn't super fun, especially if, there were questions in my mind. I was like, I don't understand, anything, any hesitation, just immediately punished. And it that just really created a very confusing childhood because I won't say that my parents were never loving. I could never say that. They were very loving. Um it was probably 50-50, honestly, between being punitive and being loving. So it really just was like hot and cold, like never knew which one I was going to get, the loving side or the hateful side. So that is where I'll begin. Let's see, what else did you include in that? There were
Like leadership dynamics,
leadership
um,
dynamic,
and
yes.
control for information that you were like you mentioned. You weren't allowed to ask questions. Let's dig around into those a bit more.
Yeah. So not allowed to ask questions when they gave us a command, basically. That was the main thing. But I mean, really, that does go deeper. We weren't allowed to ask questions really about anything. It was like, okay, this is what we say is fact, and that is it. Like that's the end all be all. That's law. What we say is law. We weren't allowed to watch Disney. I think we had like three channels, like PBS Kids, where we could watch Bob Ross on TV, and that was pretty much it. I mean, we had our VHS, like Sound of Music, like anything like crazy wholesome. That was like the only thing we were allowed to watch. Um, Put in into our systems, which, I understand came from a place of good intention, but the impact was pretty severe in that I had no real concept of what the outside world was like. I also attended Bob Jones for elementary school. And so, and I would say that my parents' belief system and the curriculum they followed was actually more intense than Bob Jones. And where was I going with that? I'm sorry. I got lost in Bob Jones' world. Oh yeah. So with Bob Jones, I mean, I don't think I knew what the word BUTT meant until fourth grade, which is how old? Like 12? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing that someone got in trouble for saying that word, and I was like, but what? I don't understand. I was thinking they meant BUT. If that gives you like a little snippet of an insight into my world, it's just very, very high control and very limited information coming in.
So we have a quite an international audience. Do you want to share a bit about what Bob Jones is? I mean, I've got that information because we're both here in the upstate. But
Okay.
just a bit of background context on Bob Jones.
Yeah, Bob Jones is a school in the South primarily. I think there actually is a Pennsylvania location as well. I could have that wrong, so don't quote me on that. But it is a religious school. It's based in baptism, evangelical Christianity. They have meetings where you are preached at, I would say, not for two, but at, like very much fire and brimstone, scare you into doing the right thing with depictions of hell being used pretty often.
Mm.
Um, there wasn't a whole lot of love, I want to say, coming from the leaders there. There was more so fear-based.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the teachers in elementary school were very kind. I was always like teacher's pet because I was so quiet and um, good at school because I was, terrified of getting in trouble all the time. Um, but yeah, that's Bob Jones in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hearing that like a living in a world of duality here. So teachers were kind. There was an aspect of loving the same coming from the parents as well. But then you've got this counterpart, which is very much control, coercion, and using fear as the kind of the tactic to get you to be compliant, to get you to be a certain way. Chat to me about that a bit more. What living with that kind of duality was like.
The word that comes to mind first is just simply confusing. It was extremely confusing. I just remember um, feeling very confused, but also fearful. Like I was very shy. And that's not my natural personality whatsoever, if you know anything about me. um, I was I was just put in this fearful little box that unfortunately, I don't believe now that that's anything close to what God is. Um, so I think they just missed the point. They were so fearful of us ending up in hell. They're fearful of them doing the wrong thing. They're fearful of us turning out, bad. Um, that they just went overboard. And actually, I would like to talk a little bit about the curriculum that they followed,
Mm.
if that's all right.
Please do. Yeah,
Okay.
that we're here to share the
Okay.
insights. Go for it.
Yeah. So it was called Growing Kids God's Way. It was originated in Florida by a man named Gary Ezza. And I've seen stats. I'm not sure exactly how they obtained these stats because I was never polled, but maybe that's because we weren't down in Florida. There's only a small group in South Carolina that followed this curriculum, but I saw a stat somewhere that said 9 out of 10 children that grew up in this um, particular curriculum um, live with some sort of severe psychiatric um, disorder. And that doesn't shock me at all. But going into that, it was very much punitive. He taught how to spank and then afterwards tell them after afterwards tell them to say ask forgiveness and then they would get a hug.
Mm.
So it was like almost reinforcing the idea that like we're doing this because we love you. And
Yeah.
that made me feel even worse.
Mm.
Personally. And um that curriculum was built around the idea that you can raise the perfect child. By the one Bible verse in Proverbs that says, "Do not spare the rod if you love your child."
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I can see how that kind of environment to grow up in would be hugely confusing because it's mass contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm hurting you, but I'm doing it because I love you. I'm doing this because I care for you. I want better for you. I want you to be this perfect child. And I mean, it's if we're looking at psychology, that's pretty much what an abuse cycle would look like. Where it's the abuse happens, the bad experiences happen, and then we go into this phase where everything's calm and we're loving and we're doing the thing. So growing up in that kind of environment, I think confusion is definitely the word to be using there as you described it. Um, Chat to me a bit about how things like belief, belonging, and most certainly fear shaped your sense of self, your own morality, and your relationship to authority figures.
Oh man, that authority word cracks me up every time because I just hate it. It's
Mm,
ingrained in me now to absolutely hate authority. I just think it's ridiculous. Like I'm of the mind now that we're all connected. We're all um out here trying our best, It's not there shouldn't be like human authority. But anyway, um growing up under the belief that if I did the right thing, I was going to heaven. If I did the wrong thing and didn't believe in Jesus to be my savior, to forgive my sins, I was going to hell, then it definitely hurt um the relationship I could have had with God from an early age, because I believe I did connect with God, the universal God, um, even through all of that confusion. But it was definitely skewed. I I felt times of peace. I remember feeling times of loving connection to the universal God when praying. So I know that like I was connecting to him, or her, but I wasn't able to see like the whole picture. You know what I mean? Like I was just kind of seeing him through this tiny little people.
mm,
And belonging, that one is interesting. I felt like I guess belonged to my family, but it was such a closed family system that I felt I felt like I belonged to my family and to Jesus and the Trinity or whatever, and that was it.
mm,
Like not I didn't really belong to my extended family because they weren't super Christians. They were Christians, but they weren't super Christians. So they didn't count. And then we weren't really allowed to spend a lot of time around them. And then friends only a lot. I only had two friends, and they were the losers of Bob Jones because their parents were also very strict and they were also very shy. Um, so belonging has a weird connotation for me.
Mm.
And then what was the third? What the was it authority?
Yeah, how that's shaped your sense of self and your own morality,
A
and obviously
morality, right?
that relationship to authority. Mm.
Yeah. I so okay, so I did this is an interesting topic because the purity culture was so intense. Um, I had my first kiss when I was 16. Um, and then I dated my boyfriend, Sweet Tyler, from I believe 11th grade until my sophomore year in college. And we never had sex. Somehow we were deeply in love and we just were like saving ourselves for marriage. um, and going backwards a little bit, unfortunately, my dad did, or my parents would spank for catching me um, masturbating. I don't know if you can cut that out if you need to.
Nope,
Sorry.
you're good. No, yep, speak freely. You're good.
Okay. But I so it was literally beat into me the idea that purity was like the prize, made you a prize.
Mm,
And that hurt me a lot because I had such a strict um set of morals for myself until until the time that I lost my faith altogether. And then I went the opposite direction.
mm.
So I will hold off on going into that detail unless you'd like me to.
Uh,
Um,
by all means, because that helps people see like how does one come out of this hectic, rigid system of
yeah.
purity and control, and then what happens to one coming out of that. So, but yeah, please do share.
Okay, I'll go into it. So I don't know how many people on here um will know the terms that I'm about to use, but I believe I was dissociated for most of my childhood. That just means you feel detached from your body, basically. And sorry, my cat's got the zoomies, so if you hear something, it's just my cat. But anyway, so where was I? Um,
Disassociation.
Dissociation, right. So I was disassociated from childhood up until about my sophomore, junior year of college, when I went through a series of very unfortunate events, unfortunately, and it slowly began to chip away at that dissociation and depression began to onset.
Mm,
And the final straw was when one of my friends died, and he was not a professing Christian. And I was like, wait, okay, so my faith says if he wasn't a Christian, he's now in hell and we are separated forever.
mm,
And I remember just almost like a mantra thinking over and over, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And that um, really stripped me of all the dissociation, brought on severe depression as I disconnected from God completely. Because I was
mm.
like, oh, well, I refuse to believe that. And if that's not what I'm believing, then I must believe in nothing. I had no because of the strict structure of evangelical Christianity, um, being set up in my life with no room for questions, I had nowhere else to turn. Um, and unfortunately, I went into an 11-year long bout of very severe depression. Um, I'll be honest, I was suicidal during that time. I had two attempts. I was in and out of psych wards. A lot of those I actually took myself there because I was like, look, like if I don't get help, I'm gonna do it.
Mm.
And and towards the later years of that 11-year bout, I knew that I didn't really want to die. I just knew that I really severely needed help because I was just so depressed. But thankfully, one day, this is like just the miracle of all miracle stories. I had collected a couple crystals, just thinking they were pretty. I had a few new friends that were like, "Oh yeah, they help you get into a deeper meditation. They're good for different things." I was like, I don't know if I believe all that, but they're pretty. So I had a few, and I was having a particularly bad day of depression, and I was like, okay, well, I haven't tried meditation in like 10 years. I'm just going to give it a try. I've heard there's ones on YouTube. So I threw on the first YouTube meditation that I found, and I threw on the crystals on my body, and I laid down. And what happened next was truly profound. I had incidentally thrown on a YouTube meditation called Travel Down the River to Meet Your Spirit Guides in the Crystal Cave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very not chill, not zero chill for the first meditation I was trying in 10 years. But anyway, so I laid down, I threw it on, and I guess I just really got into a deep state. And mind you, there was zero drugs involved, completely sober, just laying there on my couch, absorbing whatever sound bath healing was going on as well, and listening to the meditation and really getting deep into it. Well, lo and behold, I met my spirit guides that day. Had no idea what a spirit guide was, didn't know anything about this world. I just broke right into it first try. And I believe it was 7 different spirits came to me. 6 of them were people that I was very close to at one point and had passed. They came through and they each told me what they had been there for me throughout my life. And that that hearing that I had not been alone through all my suffering just unlocked something in my brain really beautifully. And the last spirit to come through was God. And it was interesting because I heard a deep man's voice say, "Hi, I'm God." And then I heard a female voice say, "Hi, I'm God." And they said, "We are one, and you can believe in us. Like you can't, like we are here for you. You can believe in us again." And I was like, "Whoa." I mean, that was just like incredible. I didn't even know that was a possible thing that could happen until that day. So I remember coming out of it and just writing down everything I possibly could, journaling about it. So I actually still have those journal notes, which is really cool. But yeah, my depression left that day and has not returned since. And it has been 4 years since that day. So
That's incredible.
pretty cool.
That really is amazing. I mean, part of the conversation in this quarter is, religious deconstruction, people moving away from the hardcore like dogma and high control,
Mhm.
to come to spirituality. I mean, what you shared is what that transition has looked like, and it was through a very deep, profound experience, and a profound experience with God. And that there's that dual aspect to God, and that to me, I love that part, because inside religion dogma, it's very patriarchal, and God is very patriarchal, and it is a system that has caused more chaos and disruption in the world than anything else. That isn't a good system that works. So that kind of reinforcing of God being a dualistic concept, I think is a really beautiful one, because most spiritual practices will reinforce that. We have that duality within ourselves. The universe has that duality in itself. I mean, if we want to look at Hermetic laws, everything is gender. You've got masculine and feminine. We've always got this dual aspect. So I love the transition and how, um, you know, essentially crystal therapy and meditation were the things that you're saving grace, essentially, the things that snapped you out of that.
Mhm.
Um, let's chat about, you mentioned in your earlier years that like questioning was a big no-no, like we weren't allowed to do that. And was that very much around asking any kind of question, if you had doubts or disagreements, if you had curiosity about things, how was questioning handled inside the school environment that you were in, as well as your home environment?
I think I didn't even really know how to form a question. I think I was so scared to ask because of how everything was presented. It was
Mm.
presented as such strict law that it was like, oh, okay, that's how it is. And there wasn't even, I mean, I don't even think I really had room to have curiosity because it's like, oh, well, everything's laid out for me already. I don't like, there's no question to be asked.
Mm. Yeah, I could see that. Um, living inside so much rigidity that there isn't anything else outside of that. And I
Mhm.
mean, you spoke earlier about, there was no Disney, there was, PBS Kids and Bob Ross, and like that was it. And then that restricts one to think outside of the box, that all is the box. There isn't anything outside of that. Um, let's chat about that. Obviously you've had your experience in like refinding like true God, your true connection with source, universe, yourself. And that exit process for you in moving away from church dogma, that environment that you grew up in, what was that like for you emotionally, the psychology behind it, and socially? How have you kind of adjusted yourself over the years?
That was absolutely heartbreaking. I was a part of a group at Wofford College called Campus Outreach. I want to say there was another name for it now that I think about it too, that I'm blanking on. But anyway, it was a Christian group. And I actually I lost pretty much every I'm trying to think if there's anyone I still talk to. I mean, I'll briefly interact with maybe two or three people from my college experience today, like once a year. But I lost pretty much every single friend I had there. And it's not like the whole campus was Christian, but um I turned into this emotional tornado of a person, um, that I just wrecked every friendship I had there, because I was in so much inner turmoil. It really, it was really pretty devastating. I actually had to leave college in my junior year, so I only had a year and a half left. And I had to leave because I was having panic attacks in class. Um, my depression and anxiety had onset so severely that I could not keep up. And so emotionally, it was devastating. And then socially, it was heartbreaking. I mean, the whole event was terrible. It was actually so bad. That was the first time I did attempt suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I planned it for a long time. And then the campus, pretty much the whole campus found out, and um, they were probably shocked, and like somewhat shocked. I don't know, maybe they weren't. That was such a whirlwind disaster, but I um, I went to the first psych ward in Greenville. They didn't know what to do with me because I was so suicidal for many weeks. And finally they were like, all right, well, we can't just keep her in this hospital forever. So my parents found an emotional recovery center out in Tennessee. So I went and did that for 3 months. And that was good to be around other it was a women's emotional recovery center. So that was good to be around other women that had been through hard things as well, and gain a little perspective and kind of recenter myself. But then I came back to Greenville and I could not last more than 5 days in that city. Excuse me. I just remember telling my dad, I have to get out of here. I cannot stay, or I will just end up right back where I was. And I had made a friend or connection in the women's recovery center that lived in Charleston, and she had offered her guest house for me to live in, until I got on my feet there. So I was like, look, I have this opportunity. I away from Greenville, but not too far. You can still visit me and whatever. But I need to get out. And my dad did not understand. He was just like pretty mad, actually, to be honest. But he was like, but at the same time, at least he was like, he heard me. He was like, okay, let's get you on a ride up to down to Charleston, and set you up there. And so I remember rushedly packing a suitcase and off I went. And then I lived there for 4 years. Um, but yeah. So anyway, the disconnect from my family and friends was really hard.
And the relationship that you have with your family today, what does that look like? Coming from the experience that you had as a child, coming into teenage years, what is that relationship like for you now?
Um, I would say it's very surface level. Um, we I think a therapist told my parents, if you don't know what to talk about with her, talk about the weather. And it cracks me up because it never fails. Every time we get on the phone, we talk about the weather.
Hmm.
But yeah, um, they are not affiliated with the Florida church anymore. But they did begin a church in our house, actually, that came off of Mitchell Road in Greenville, and is now called Downtown Pres. That began in my family's house. And so they are still a part of that. So really, we can't have any deep discussions about our inner lives or worlds because it's taboo to them. And,
Mm.
in their minds, I'm going to hell. And in my minds, they're missing the point of life. So, yeah, it's kind
That,
of
that
sad.
I can see that. The way that you've said it, that to them you're going to hell and they're sad for you and they would like to do what they could for you, but for you, you're like, yeah, you're just missing out the point of life here. And would you say that deep experience that you had on your couch doing the meditation and connecting with Source had a kind of a shift for you in having that perspective?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was still a good bit of a whirlwind, just um not sure, I was not sure what I believed or what I was doing, what my purpose was on earth. I was just kind of bumbling around, like trying to make it, trying for those 11 years that I lived with depression. So when I finally came out of it, it was like a whole new world opened up. And um, I began seeing all these deep insights through tarot, through giving myself Reiki, through getting Reiki on myself. I really fell in love with Reiki energy work um, because it helps me connect more to the universe, soul, God, and that's just been such a beautiful journey. Um, I now pray every single day. I have sometimes I have a hard time with that word pray. I don't know what else, I guess converse, connect with, whatever. The universal God. But yeah.
So it's like you've come from kind of like a false representation of what universal source means for most of us inside the spiritual spaces, to really having a life altering experience with that source, and it's saying like, hey, I am actually here, I am actually real, like that's something you can believe in.
Mhm.
And it's kind of expanded your perception on like what is God, what is connection. And I think for a lot of people, semantics really does get in the way with a lot of things. Um, we can like the word pray, for example, where it's you're having a conversation, you're connecting, you're having dialogue, you're praying. It doesn't really matter what word we're using. The premise behind it is what is the same thing. And I feel that a lot of those, the evangelical and those high control religious environments, they get very stuck on semantics. Like that is like, there is only one way to do things, and this is the way that we're doing it right now. The fact that it inflicts a lot of harm, both physically, psychologically, emotionally, that's all done for the greater good. It's kind of like um, when we look at colonization or the first forced conversions, that literally had God beaten into them in a sense. When we do come to spirituality, I think a lot of people are looking for the softness, they're looking for the love and light, they're looking for the gentleness. Um, Coming into working inside the spiritual spaces, let's touch a little bit on kind of like the toxic side of spirituality where people are like, oh, it's all love and light and it's soft and it's gentle and it's nurturing. Yeah, it's all those things, but also coming into these spaces, there is a lot of work. There is a lot of facing yourself and facing your shadow. And inside high control environments, you can't do that kind of work. Like you don't look at your shadow at all. Like that, you're looking at the devil if you do that. So chat to me about your experience in coming to spirituality and spiritual spaces, and really working through your own stuff.
For me, I grew up with, so much fear and so much hearing that I was bad. Um, I began really internalizing that. And so I have dealt with so much guilt and shame it towards myself
Mm,
over my life. And, from the outside looking in, I should feel guilt and shame because I have done terrible things. When during that 11-year bout of depression, I mean, I was sleeping with whoever, I was um not loyal. I was chasing pockets of joy wherever I could find them
mm,
and not worrying about the consequences until I realized there were consequences. And then I just felt an immense amount of guilt and shame,
mm,
to the point that I wanted to end my life. So, for me, the shadow work has been going back to specific frames, looking at where, I committed something that um, was hurtful to someone else. And instead of continuing to punish that little girl, saying, Ashley, I love you in that moment, as you're doing that exact terrible act, I love you. And that kind of work just radicalized my self-worth and really gave me hope and love and confidence that I believe is inherent and to everyone, that everyone deserves. That's where I come from now, is a place of true love. So, um, I don't know if that answers your question very well.
mm. It does. It really does.
Good.
Um, because a lot of people they leave these environments in the hopes that they'll find that softer space, that more gentle space, that more accepting space, and not having that full awareness of, spirituality has those things, but also, spirituality is all about the duality, and that it's going to give you a landing space to deal with the heavy stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that for you, that has been very much the case, and that you've taken ownership of doing that kind of work. Where it's like, I've got to climb into the things that I did in the past.
Mhm.
Um, but as we kind of bring this to a close, um, rebuilding that, um, who you are, who is Ashley, that journey to get back to the core of who you are. Chat to me a bit about that, and then I definitely want to hear how Reiki and tarot found you. If you don't mind sharing those with me.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Um, well, I'm not gonna say I don't have days of here and there where I'm anxious. And that really comes from actual real life events that are going on. I have a daughter with very severe special needs now. So I am like on high alert with that. But um in that there's actually the answer and the cure, and that is crystal therapy, sound therapy, and prayer. I If I wake up anxious, I just say, all right, I got to set aside like 10-15 minutes, all it takes. Throw the crystals on my different chakras. I love chakra healing. Um, and lay down, throw the music on, and just pray for healing. And sometimes that involves giving myself a bit of Reiki. Sometimes it just involves saying thank you, thank you, thank you for all the blessings that I do have, because I know I have a lot to be thankful for. And that is really so powerful. I mean, it just changes the whole course of my day more than any anti-anxiety drug ever could. Um, so yeah, and then I'll, if an event happens, I mean, now I just have appropriate, I would say, emotions.
Mm,
It's not like I get stuck. I may go into a depressed state for like a week if after a breakup or something, but I always come right back out of it.
mm-mm.
And I got into Reiki because I was like, after that meditation experience, I was just like, okay, how can I get more of that? Because that was awesome. How can I help? And also how can I help other people? Because at my core, I know I am a healer now. Now I know I'm a healer. Um, that's like my purpose in life. And I do have high hopes and dreams of building a healing center one day. That's like spiritual healing to your getting to the root of everything in Greenville. I think that would be really cool. But anyway, so I got into Reiki. I did my first, second, and master class. um I did them in Greenville. Um I probably practice three to five people a week now, which is probably as much as I ever want to do, to be honest, because it's such powerful work. It's like, wow, okay, I need to like reset after that because we go deep. I have a tendency to make people cry, but it's always in the best way. It's like a good release, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I fell in love with energy work. I go over the chakras. I actually have a really cool gift. So I'll go over each chakra and I will close my eyes and, I invite um, spirit guides, God Gaia, benevolent ancestors, and angels to assist. And then I close my eyes and go over each chakra, and I actually see images in my mind's eye pop up. And I'm like, okay, I'm seeing a giraffe with a party hat. Like, what's going on here? I mean, sometimes they are ridiculous images and we're like laughing and like having a great time. But I love using that one because she said, oh, that means I need to have need to have a higher perspective on the situation, and I need to have fun with it. I
Yeah.
mean, like, it's really cool. It is really super cool. I love it. And it's super healing. I mean, it just really gets down and dirty and um helps people feel so much. People always report that they feel lighter and at much more at peace after their sessions with me. So that's really cool. And then tarot is awesome. I also have a whole bunch of oracle decks as well, like I see you have too.
I don't have a
um,
problem.
yeah, yeah, it's great. I love it. I do too. Right there with you. um, and those help you contemplate your situation or your life or whatever it is you're asking about more in depth as well. So yeah, love those two things a lot.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, if you had to leave a message for someone who's perhaps living inside a high control environment, or living within a framework that is very hectic on the purity culture, what would you say to them if they were thinking about, is this the right thing for me? Am I doing the right thing? I'm living in the right world. Maybe spirituality has something else to offer me. What would you say to someone like that?
I would say, how much love do you feel in your life right now? And if the answer is below, let's say 80%, then you're missing the point of life, is what I would say. And I mean, that's just what you want to do is amplify the love and light. Because it's like a domino effect, you know, the more love you feel for yourself, the more you're going to give to your family, to your children, to strangers on the street, and then they're going to feel that, and then they're going to want to spread it, and that's how you heal the world, really. I mean, so I would just ask, is there more love that could be felt? Am I feeling more fear than love? That's really the question I would ask. And if that's the case, think about, just start thinking, like, does this make sense? Could there be more? And, you know, I'm always available to reach out to. I know you are as well. There's always more love. That's what I would leave them with.
And then one last question. What is the point of life for you? What do you feel that that point of life is?
I believe it's to learn lessons. I've had a particularly challenging life, even now that I have gotten away from the depression and dissociation. I have a child with very special needs. We are in and out of the hospital like twice a month at least. And I was told by a psychic once that I came into this life choosing for it to be my last life on earth and to learn every hard lesson I possibly could so that I could graduate into like a higher state of being once I die from this planet. So I don't know really where I fall in that obviously opens up a whole other can of worms, but basically I do believe it's to learn lessons and to learn that love is always the answer.
Mm, yes, I think that's a beautiful one to close it on. I mean, if you're looking at the core of Jesus and his teachings, you're
Yeah.
looking at the core of Buddha and his teachings, all spiritual philosophies. The thing that sits at the center of it is love, loving kindness, compassion. That really is the true point of existence. Is how much love do you feel? How much love do you have?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, this has been an incredibly beautiful conversation. I appreciate your willingness and vulnerability to share your story so openly. Um,
Yeah.
and that it could perhaps give assistance or insight or even hope to someone who may be going through a similar experience, that there is something else out there and that it is okay to question. So I really do appreciate the share. I will be back for the third quarter. We will be sharing the theme for the third quarter in our quarterly newsletter, so look out for that coming up next month. And I will be back with a run of incredibly deep conversations, another round of fabulous elders. So be sure to tune back in for the following quarter.